And I did this project with a London-based creative agency called Merry Media. And this is one of the pieces from the project. It's on those spikes. It's got some sort of fluorescent pigments to it. So when it's under the sunlight, it absorbs the light, and when it's dark, it emits the light. So it glows in the dark. And this is the project we did with Merry Media. Yeah, and so I'd like to talk about another things I've been doing with this collection. It's a collaboration with an Icelandic musician called Björk. I don't know if you know her. She's this is her latest album called Valnikura, and it was released this March. When I finished my graduate collection at the Royal College 1.5 years ago, I got an email from her manager saying, "Hey, we've seen your work. Björk thinks it's beautiful." And I didn't think there was actual people, but it turned out to be them. And then that's how we kind of started the conversation. And she was doing this tour called Biophilia at that time, and the work I made really matched the concept of her tour. So I lent her a few pieces and she wore them on stage, and that was incredible because, you know, I was making all these sort of crazy big pieces in studio at college, and I never really thought of, you know, seeing someone actually wearing them, and especially singing and dancing on stage. And it was a great experience because it really sort of, you know, brought me to the reality that they could be worn by someone like her. You know, it was really incredible. And so going back to this is the latest album she's doing. So she's having an exhibition at MoMA in New York at the moment, and I'm exhibiting one of the pieces there too. And the yellow one she's wearing in the picture is actually this one. And I only have one piece, so it's sort of traveling around. Whenever she's needed, I need to send it, and then I got it back for this today. And here I'm just changing the collection. I'd like to talk about another group of work I made during my BA at St. Martin's. I was studying jewelry design at the time, so it's all metal work, but it's also related to the body. And this collection is titled Cinematography. And I think the collection was made in 2009. So this headpiece she's wearing, that's what I made. It's hand-pierced perforated metal, And when the light shines through the piece, it basically casts the shadow of roses onto the skin. And so, you know, it doesn't really make any sense if it's not worn on the body, and it only sort of appears when someone takes a piece and put it on the body, and then when the light shines through it. And again, you know, when I started this collection, I sort of started with this sort of simple question that, you know, when you think of jewelry, it's usually necklace or bracelets, rings. It has to sort of go on a certain part of the body, you know, fingers, necks, ankles, chests, whatever. And I thought, you know, why can't there be anything that could be worn on like more abstract and sort of obscure parts of the body, like collarbones, or somewhere sort of from the back to the arm, or somewhere a little bit more obscure. And I wanted to create jewelry that could be worn on those parts of the bodies. And then, yeah, when I was doing a lot of research, when I was, you know, trying to find the answer for my question, one day I saw these photographies by a photographer called Solveig Sandsbo. I think I pronounced it correct. And he's one of my favorite fashion photographers. When I saw these images, I thought, okay, you know, shadows can be the material to adorn the body as jewelry. You know, shadows can follow anywhere on the skin, and, you know, it could be worn anywhere basically. So I thought that's, you know, that's probably the good thing to work with. And this was the very first test I did. Obviously, you know, you can't make shadow out of nothing, so you have to make something that casts shadow onto the skin. So I had, and also, you know, you can't just sort of cut the shape of a flower out of a piece of metal and cast a shadow of the flower and saying this is a shadow of a flower, because it's too obvious. I wanted to do something more unexpected. So this is the picture by Man Ray, is the kiss. And what I did was I took the picture and I pixelated the image and inverted so it's, you know, it looks like a photo negative, and applied the pattern onto a sheet of metal and basically drilled each hole one by one using different sizes of the drill. So it's from like 0.5 mil to 2.0, and then I changed drills often and create the same pattern. So when the light shines through the piece, you know, where the bigger holes, the light gets lighter, and when there's smaller holes, it gets darker. So I use this sort of mechanism to create more like a photo-like shadows. And this is the making of the first headpiece with the rose shadows I showed you. So it was a lot of work. And this is my sister drilling holes for me. She flew to London from Tokyo because I didn't know if I could finish anything, and she just flew and drilled holes for me for 5 days. She didn't do anything other than that. And, you know, when you drill holes on a metal, it sort of, you have to sand it down because otherwise it's going to cut your skin. So the sanding was also a big part of the work, and also, you know, also you don't know until you drill the holes if the photograph you choose would work. And this is another piece from the collection. It's got an eye, a cast on the skin. And this piece actually has a secret kind of element to it. So this is how it looks when it's just cast on the table. So now you can see it's winking, but shadows can only be seen when there's a space between an object and, you know, the skin or whatever that's cast on. So when you take off this necklace, it's winking, but on the skin you only see an open eye, but the winking eye itself is like a sort of hidden secret part of the work. And this is another piece, it's a cat face mask. I thought, it's cool if you can wear a cat face on your face. And it actually worked really well, but to do this, I had to do all these tests with different faces of cats, because, if I like the cat Dali has here, but if you sort of do this picture and drill holes, it doesn't necessarily work. You have to choose a good cat to make it work. And I don't know which cat I chose in it, but in the end it looked like this. And this is another piece. This is one of the very first pieces I made. It's attached to the neck with a leather strap. And this is one of the pieces. It's a pair of sunglasses. And you can see the roses in the shadows, but when it's on the body, what happens is, most of the roses are kind of gone because it's too close to the face. But when the person stands by the wall and then when the light shines through it, you see a black shadow of the person but with the rose next to it. And this is a dress, actually. It's not made of metal, it's made of fabric. But when she dances, the flowers kind of follow her and it disappears. When she tilts her body a little bit, or when the light's gone, it's gone. It's really kind of transient, ethereal pieces of work. And this is lips. And for this collection, I intentionally chose quite sort of sassy motifs. Instead of dogs, cats work better. Instead of lilies, roses work better. And I don't know, it had to be something a little bit seductive, so that's why I chose lips and eyes and something sort of, not sexy. And this is something, it's a little bit funny, it's a fox fur. And I thought, it's probably cool to wear a fox shadow on the neck like a fox fur jacket. And at last, this is the video I want to show you with this collection. But I don't know if it works on this computer, so I'm going to switch to the other one. Yeah, so this is a film I collaborated with a Japanese photographer called Takeshi Hanzawa, and then he was invited for a film festival called Asforth. It's a shaded view fashion film, and this is the film he made.